Your ideal contact point may not be where you think it is, and in this video I'm going to show you why. Now, it might get a little bit scientific, but it should help you to understand your contact points better, and in turn help you to get more out of your shots, whether you're looking for more power, spin, or control. Let's get into it. Now, before getting too scientific, it's really important I mention grips, as the grip you use for any given shot impacts your ideal contact point. To go through these very briefly, if you're using a continental grip for your forehand or your backhand, you're going to feel far more comfortable with a low contact point, as this grip puts your racket face in an open position, allowing you to get underneath those low balls. However, when you're receiving high balls, this is going to feel far more uncomfortable. At the other end of the spectrum, if you're using a full Western grip on your forehand or a heavy topspin grip on your backhand, you're going to deal with those higher balls far more easily than you would with the lower balls, which is why nowadays most players on their forehand elect for a semi-Western grip, as this puts your ideal contact point somewhere between your waist and your shoulder height, which is where most balls bounce to. And on the backhand grip, if you've got a single hander, most players elect for an Eastern backhand grip, which is where your knuckle is on the top bevel. This allows you to get that comfortable contact point from waist to shoulder height. And double-handed backhands have slightly more variance, as you've got two different grips, but a standard one is continental with your stronger hand and an Eastern forehand grip for your offhand. And so the first thing to be aware of is what grips are you using on your ground strokes, and how does that impact your ideal contact point. If you're using one of those heavy topspin forehand or backhand grips, it's really important that you're not letting the ball drop too low. This is going to start to feel less comfortable. And if you're more of a traditional player using a continental grip or an Eastern grip for your forehand, then get yourself into a position where your contact point is lower. You might need to take the ball earlier before it gets too high, or step back further to let the ball drop. Whereas if you have that in-between grip that I suggested, you're going to have slightly more versatility. So although that covers the ideal height of your contact point, a topic that rarely gets covered online is how close to your body is your ideal contact. You might notice that some players hit their forehand with a fully extended arm, whilst others prefer a bent arm forehand. Now again, grip does play a part in this, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about physics. Now, I'm by no means a scientist, but when it comes to generating racket head speed, there are clear physics involved. One of the biggest forces when it comes to hitting forehands and backhands is rotational force, which, as I've mentioned before, comes from ground reaction force, driving our legs into the ground, in turn rotating our hips and our trunk before our arm comes through, swinging the racket. When it comes to rotational forces, it's really important to understand that the further an object is from the center of the rotation, the quicker it moves. For example, if I hold the racket really close to my body here and rotate, this racket is moving far slower than it would be if I were to put my racket further out to the side and swing at the same speed. And so with that in mind, the further your contact point is away from your trunk, the more racket speed potential you have. But this is only the case if you're completely balanced and stable through that swing. And one really useful visual for you is to make sure that your trunk is in between your feet as you're driving into the shot. As long as this is the case, you're going to make the most of that long lever. But as soon as your trunk leaves the central point between your feet, you're off balance and you lose that racket head speed potential. So if you're looking for purely power, having your contact point further from your body can increase power potential. However, bringing your racket closer to your body can increase control, which we'll talk about shortly. Now, although we've talked about our contact point being further from our body can help us to generate more racket head speed, it's slightly different depending on the height of your contact. As our arm is connected to our body via our shoulder, you can see that the distance from my body that my racket is changes depending on the height of my contact point. If my contact point is around shoulder height, that's the furthest that I can reach to the side of my body. However, if If I keep my arm fully extended and contact a much lower ball, you can see that my racket head is much closer to my body here. And so rather than being fixated on how far away from your body your contact point is, just make sure that you're extending to the ball no matter what height you're hitting it at. What this does mean though is that if your contact point is lower, you want to get yourself closer to the ball to feel comfortable. This is going to take your trunk away from your balance position. Equally, the higher your contact point is, the further away from the ball you want to get. There are obviously tons of nuances when it comes to the physics of hitting ground strokes, as there are loads of variables in play. But when it comes to the basics of generating racket head speed, the further away from your body your contact point is, the more speed potential you have. But as we know, power is not always what we're looking for. Sometimes we're looking for touch and control. This is where a closer contact point can help you. When it comes to any activity that requires dexterity and control, think of detailed writing or painting or finger picking a guitar. You want that item as close to your body as possible to give you maximum control. And the same goes for your tennis. Anytime you're looking for feel, touch, control, whether that's hitting a drop shot, an angle volley, or a slice backhand, the closer to your body your contact point, the more feel and control you have. This is why a lot of beginners, when they learn how to hit a serve, they throw the ball really low and make contact with it here. They have a lot more control over their body in this position than they do when they're fully extending to the ball. And so anytime you're looking for touch or control, you want your contact point to be closer to your body. You'll see pro tennis players having their hands quite close to their body when they're up at the net to get those quick reactions and soft touch. But when they're looking for optimal racket head speed, their contact point is really out away from their body, making use of levers and physics. So after breaking down the video, you've probably realized that there is not one perfect contact point. It changes from shot to shot. And that's the thing that we love and hate about tennis. It's not that simple. But to put this into practice in your own game, first be aware of the grips that you're using and what limitations they have. Figure out where your most comfortable contact point is and try to get yourself in that position as much as you possibly can. And remember that anytime you're looking for power, you want to give yourself a bit more space away from the ball to create that long lever. And anytime you're looking for control and touch, get yourself closer to your contact point so that you have maximum control of your hands. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below if you've got any questions about it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.